keep that in mind as you're out and about today. Good morning, Dr. Kevin. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, they're talking about it being pretty bad, several inches.
So just be safe and be smart about it.
Yeah.
I know that there are some areas that are offering sandbags, so check with your local municipalities if you think you're going to be needing some. Dr. Kevin with Bryant Health and Wellness.
Yes.
What's going on this morning?
Well, we're starting to see more and more studies about the health benefits of eating protein or eating a higher protein diet. And I wanted to discuss some of the findings today for our listeners because I get a lot of questions on that, like how much protein should I eat? What kind of protein is good? So I wanted to go through some details on that. Now, the paleo diet has become all of the rage lately, and it has shown some beneficial, some success to lose weight. There are a few minor things I don't agree with the paleo, and I prefer a little bit more of a Mediterranean-style diet for myself because who really knows what Paleolithic humans really ate? I mean, they probably ate grub worms and grasshoppers and many other bugs as well. And when I tell the paleo crowd that, they all of a sudden they aren't so excited about eating like a Paleolithic human. But
so the paleo diet is more or less a meat diet.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to clarify. Go ahead.
With a few other things, but who knows what they actually ate back then? And then also the area that they lived in, I'm sure, made a dramatic impact as well. So, the truth is they probably ate radically different diets based on where they lived. But the concept of eating less refined foods and less refined sugars and higher protein and almost no breads, carbs, or sugars, I do strongly agree with that. And I also prefer eating moderate amounts of healthy fats. Back in the 80s and 90s, fat kind of got a bad rap, and we all tried to eat lower fat foods. And what they did is they substituted those low fat foods with more sugar, and obesity and diabetes went through the roof. And so healthy fats do not make us gain weight. Things like nuts, seeds, avocados, olive oils, fish, and all those are all healthy fats. And when you mix that with lean protein foods and leafy green vegetables and a little fruit and some whole grains, but not a lot, that's more of a Mediterranean style diet. And that's the type I like to follow. But this study and many others show that we're not getting enough protein in our diets many times and eating too many carbohydrates. And it's these carbohydrates that are making us gain weight and making people have this obesity epidemic that we have. So the average American eats 7 times too many carbohydrates in their diet.
Wow.
So think about this. When you go out to eat, first thing to hit the table is a beer or a soda or a sweet tea, all carbs. Then the next thing they bring you is bread, carbs. Then they bring you your salad, carbs, with a sugary dressing, carb. Then they bring you your entree with rice, carb, and another vegetable, carb, and one protein. So and then you save room for dessert, carb, or another beer, carb. So you can see how out of balance that is. You can see why the average American has 7 times too many carbohydrates and not enough protein. And what happens, all of those carbohydrates will flood your body with insulin. Insulin tells your body to store fat, and then the fat cells actually trigger more insulin production, which signals more fat production. So it creates this downward spiral of weight gain, initiating more insulin, which causes more weight gain. So the waistline gets bigger and bigger, and you end up having to inject insulin daily. So I have several studies here on protein, which ones you should have, the amounts you should have, and all of that. So after the break, I'm going to go through all the details of which protein you should be eating, and I'm going to give you a really cool way to keep up with exactly how much without having to count every single gram of protein that you eat. But there's a formula that you should have depending on how active and if you're training in the gym or not, kind of what that amount should be. So after the break, I'm going to go through all the details of that. We'll take just a little short break, and then we'll discuss all these studies whenever we get back.
Wellness Wednesdays with Dr. Kevin. We'll be right back. It's 8:14. It's 8:16. Dr. Kevin's talking about how to balance your diet better to make up for all the carbs that they're giving you.
Exactly. And there's several new studies that found that eating a higher protein diet, these patients actually had much better blood work and blood pressure. Boston University followed almost 1,400 people for 11 years, and they found that those that consumed protein consistently, they logged lower blood pressure compared to those that ate less protein. And doctors have been saying to avoid meat for years, just like they said avoid eggs because they give you high cholesterol. Many of those things have now been proven to be false. Eating cholesterol doesn't necessarily equate with cholesterol that's plaques our arteries. And I feel that a lot of that's made in the liver from eating different things in our diet. Again, carbs. So this study is more proof of what I've been saying for years, that insulin is the enemy, and it's not necessarily protein or meats that you eat. And insulin has been associated with everything from weight problems to chronic diseases like diabetes and cancer. And also, eating too much sugar and carbs causes inflammation. And I've said many times on the show, inflammation, chronic systemic inflammation, is the precursor to almost all chronic diseases like heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. And so the good news with this, though, is that you are in control of your own choices. And so my program is all about empowering you to make smart choices. But the cool thing is that my program was designed to show you that you can eat great food and still manage your weight and health. You don't have to eat like a rabbit to be healthy. That's such a myth that people think. Now, as far as healthy protein sources go, I would always recommend a more organic-based meat, because it's the hormones and drugs that they put in the meat that they give regular feedlot stock that transfers into you, and you get these drug residues. And if you don't think drugs are used a lot in regular livestock, 80% of the antibiotics produced in the country are used in livestock that we will eventually eat.
So 80% of the antibiotics aren't produced for humans. 80% of it's produced for the livestock.
Exactly.
Wow.
And so whenever you hear me talk about eating a more organic, more natural meats, you can see why. Because 80% of these antibiotics produced in the United States goes into cattle, pork, and chicken and other stock. And I personally don't want to eat that stuff, but those residues stay in the food, and many of them are approved for animal use but not for human use. And also, that's now being linked with all these drug-resistant bacteria that we have out there that you can't even treat with antibiotics once you get them. So I always try to eat organic meats whenever possible. Now, also, this is so critical that people understand this. What you ate matters. So what the stock you are eating was fed makes a huge difference in how healthy it is. In other words, what food did the beef, chicken, or pork that's on your plate, what food did they feed that animal? And that makes a huge difference. So animals that were fed a regular diet of corn, like the mass-produced stock that's on, regular grocery store shelves in America, is full of unhealthy omega-6 inflammatory fats. The ones that cause inflammation and clog our arteries and cause systemic inflammation throughout our body, leading to chronic disease. Corn fattens up the animals for sale, and it's cheap feed because the government subsidizes it, and it makes the meat fatter and more tender. But this has been the problem all along with red meat. It's not that you're eating cattle or eating beef. It's that the animal that you're eating was fed a diet of corn, making it very unhealthy and giving you cardiovascular problems. Grass-fed organic beef has as many heart-healthy omega-3 fats as salmon. So feedlot corn-fed beef is full of unhealthy fats. So along that same line of thinking of what you eat matters, let's take farm-raised salmon. Farm-raised salmon is fed from a bag, and it's mostly corn and fillers. And farm-raised salmon is full of unhealthy omega-6 fats, which you would normally associate with eating red meat. They're not even pink when they're caught. They dye the water to turn them pink. So farm-raised salmon, unhealthy. Wild-caught salmon in the wild rivers and oceans of Alaska eat algae and insects and other small fish, making them full of heart-healthy omega-3 fats, which reduce heart problems and reduce inflammation. So it's not necessarily the meat that you're eating, it's how that meat was brought up makes a huge, huge difference.
It's the food chain. It's down the food chain.
Absolutely. That's what we have to look at. So grass-fed organic beef is really good for you, much better than farm-raised salmon even. So, we would think, hey, salmon's good for us. I'm going to go get salmon, and I'm going to eat that 2 or 3 times a week. But if it's farm-raised, you might not actually be getting what you think that you're getting. So you kind of have to know what you're doing, and having a great health coach makes a big difference to build a wellness program for you and to kind of help show you these things. So you have to know what you're eating when it comes to protein. You have to know what you're actually picking, and you have to do a little bit of research. But the bottom line is grass-fed organic beef is good. Wild-caught Alaskan salmon is good. Free-range organic chicken, organic vegetarian-fed pork. All of these things are great protein sources. Some of the unhealthy farm-raised stuff, like the farm-raised tilapia from Vietnam and Thailand, terrible choice, honestly. I mean, very, very toxic. That people will buy this tilapia, and they'll do like fish tacos or whatever, thinking it's healthy. You don't even want to know how these things are raised in Vietnam and Thailand and these third world countries. It's very, very unhealthy. Feedlot beef, not a good choice. Farm-raised salmon, not a good choice. Full of unhealthy omega-6 fats. So the protein that you pick makes a really huge difference. Now, as far as how much protein you should be eating, you should try to eat 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of healthy body weight that you have. So, for instance, a 150-pound person should eat 120 to 150 grams of protein per day. And that kind of depends on their activity level as well. If you're working out hard in the gym and you're really hitting the weights, you might want to bump up a little bit. So I try to hit about 210 grams of protein for myself every day. And I use MyFitnessPal to track all of that. It's a great little app. You can enter all of your food. It even has a barcode scanner on it. So like if you go to eat something, you can just scan it in just like they would at the grocery store, and it'll put all of your food on there. And you can track your carbohydrates, fats, and proteins every single meal, which if we're trying to design a nutrition program for you, we like to count macros, not calories. Calories are a very poor indicator of what you're actually eating, where if you track your macros, your carbs, fats, and proteins, it's a very accurate indicator. So, for instance, somebody says, well, I'm counting calories to try to lose weight.
But if they're all calories from fat,
so
then not good.
No, 1 piece of chocolate cake has 500 calories. 3 chicken breasts have 500 calories. If I'm counting calories, I'm going to pick the cake. So calorie counting is not a very accurate way to determine what your body is going to actually metabolize and what's going to happen to your insulin balances and leptin and all that, all those hormones that are going to either signal weight gain or weight loss. So we like to count macros. How many fats, proteins, and carbs are you actually getting throughout the day? And MyFitnessPal is a great way to track that. And we can set your macros based on what your activity level is. Somebody that regularly works out needs more carbohydrates. Somebody that doesn't work out at all and they have a sedentary job, they need much less carbohydrates. So the carbs and the fats and the proteins are set for that individual person's activity level and their body type and all that. So,
if somebody needs more information about what we're talking about today, they can always call you. And
sure. They can give us a call at the office. It's 837-7174. But the main thing is join us on Facebook. I post a lot of this really neat stuff on Facebook all the time. It's the Bryant Wellness Institute, and our company Facebook page has really had some good stuff on it lately. So
very cool.
So stick to that.
Great information to help you if you're on. If you've got the goal to lose weight, you want to do it the right way.
That's right.
And Dr. Kevin can help you with that. Thank you, Dr. Kevin. It's 8:25.